Hi everyone, it's Linnea for LDRS Creative. Today we're going to take a look at the mini Slimline envelope die from LDRS Creative, exclusive to HSN, and we're going to be assembling a mini Slimline envelope. The mini Slimline envelope die set comes with 6 dies, and it has all the pieces you'll need to create an envelope to fit a mini Slimline card that opens on the long side or the short side. You'll see as you're looking at your die set that you have a set of outer dies, so 3 larger dies, and then a set of inner dies, 3 smaller dies. To create the envelope, you're going to use the 3 largest dies. The inner dies are used for embellishing and adding extra layers of cardstock if you'd like. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to remove the 3 dies that are used to create the envelope. You'll find this largest piece that's in my hands here. That's going to create the front of your envelope where you would write your address. Then you have that longer, skinnier panel that's going to create some flaps, and then this little flap as well. The 3 dies remaining on my backer sheet are used for adding layers and for embellishing. You do not have to use these, but you can if you want. You can create a mini Slimline envelope with this die set using just one sheet of 12 by 12 pattern paper or colored cardstock. Here again are the 3 dies that I'm going to use to create my envelope. From that largest die on the left that's going to form the front of the envelope, you'll need to cut one piece. I like to use a solid color cardstock for this, as this is where you'll write your address. That longer, skinnier panel that you'll form the flaps with, you'll need 2 pieces, and then as well 2 pieces of the smallest flap. So let's go ahead and start assembling. You'll see that the dies in the mini Slimline envelope die set create a score line as well as cutting those shapes. So I'm going to take my pattern paper that I've cut and just fold this over and reinforce that fold line with a bone folder. You don't have to reinforce that fold line, but I like to. That's a personal preference. Again, you can see here that there's a score line on this longer flap. I like to start at the ends and kind of curve that over to make sure I'm getting a straight and even fold, and then reinforce that crease line with a bone folder. Now that all those lines are folded on the score lines, let's go ahead and start building my envelope. So on my front panel here that I have, this is the largest piece. You'll see that when this die cuts, you'll have a front and a back. When a die cuts through paper, it creates almost a beveled edge. So I want to make sure that I flip this piece of cardstock over to the back so that I keep the pretty beveled side on the front. Here you can see how all these pieces are going to line up. The large ends are going to line up on the large side of that piece, and the short ends on the short sides. I'm going to start adhering my pieces together. Remember how we folded on those score lines, and that creates a little flap. This flap is what's going to adhere to the envelope base. I'm going to use some tape runner, but you can use whatever adhesive you have in your stash. Liquid adhesive or a strong double-sided adhesive will work great. So I've added my adhesive just onto that flap that I created with that fold. Remember that I'm working on the back of that large panel, and I'm going to adhere that flap piece up onto the very edge of my front panel of my envelope. If you prefer to do this with that flap open and lay that onto your table and add your panel on top, that's okay, but this is what way is easiest for me. Then I'm going to grab my bone folder and reinforce that and make sure that that adhesive is pressed really well onto my cardstock. Let's do that again so that you can see. Again, I have my cardstock piece folded over. I'm going to add adhesive right along that flap. It's about a 1/2 inch flap approximately. And then I'm going to adhere that onto the long side of the base of my envelope, the front of my envelope where I'll write my address. Lining that up with the side so that everything is flush, and here you go. You can start to see how this envelope is starting to come together with those 2 large panels. Now that the large flaps are attached, let's add those smaller panels. That's going to work the same way as those larger ones, except instead of adhering to the large side, we're going to adhere them onto the short sides. So again, I like to fold over that flap, add some adhesive, and then add that to the short side of my envelope. You can do this the same way as we did the long sides by folding that up and adding this flush onto the base of the envelope. But I have a little trick to share with you. I like to fold together those larger flaps, and that creates sort of a pocket that I can drop this smaller piece down into. And that takes all of the guesswork out of making sure that this is lined up properly. It fits perfectly just like a glove. So I'm going to pop that down in, add that onto my envelope, and then reinforce that with my bone folder. Let me show you that trick one more time. I'm going to fold up those larger edges and create a pocket to drop that shorter side down into. So I'm going to add adhesive on that little 1/2 inch flap, fold up my sides, and it doesn't matter, that other short side can fold up or just leave it out, doesn't matter. You're just really looking to create that pocket with the larger sides. Then I'm going to just drop that short side down in and add that into my envelope and adhere that and reinforce that with a bone folder. That little trick really helped me to make sure that things are lined up precisely and to make sure that everything fits together perfectly. So I hope it helps you too. Now let's go ahead and take a look at our completed envelope. Remember in the beginning I said that you're going to use these same dies to create 2 different styles of mini slimline envelopes. So here's the first. You can start by folding in the smaller sides, adding adhesive to each of the sides of one of the longer panels, and then folding this closed, and your adhesive will adhere to those short panels, creating a more landscape style envelope. Isn't that just so cute? Now let's turn this around and create a second style of mini slimline envelope. This time I'm going to start by closing one of the longer panels, adding a line of adhesive on the edge, and then also on the edge of the back of the second panel, adding adhesive on one of the short sides and folding that up. And this is how you're going to create a more portrait style envelope with opening on the short side. For the purposes of this demonstration, I'm going to show you how to create opening on the long side envelope. So I've folded in my short sides, I've added adhesive to each of those ends. Now I'm going to fold that up, reinforce that adhesive bond with my bone folder, and now I've created an mini slimline envelope that's going to open on the long side. And the reason I did this is because the card that I created to coordinate with this envelope is a landscape style card. So I wanted this to open on the long side. But if you have a more vertical or portrait style card, you can create an envelope that opens on the short side with the same set of dies. Let's dress up this card a little bit more. Remember I said the inner dies on the mini slimline envelope die set are used for embellishing. I wanted to create a place on the flap where I could write a little message or even a return address. So I'm going to take that die that nestles into that larger flap, cut it from some white cardstock, I'll add adhesive, and then layer that right on top of that flap. And there is a die that's going to layer onto the small flap as well. So you can create that little accent if you have an envelope that's opening on the long side like this one or on the short side. Remember that I created the front of my envelope with a piece of white cardstock, but if you have created that with a piece of pattern cardstock, there is also a large die that will cut a layer so that you can add a piece of solid cardstock on top of your envelope. I like to just add some cute little lines and a little please deliver to sentiment to dress up the front of my envelope, but that's an optional step. You could add some stamping or ink blending or just leave it plain white. Here is my finished mini slimline envelope project. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial using the LDRS Creative Mini Slimline Envelope die set exclusive to HSN. Thank you very much for watching this video. LDRS Creative has many more video tutorials on their YouTube channel for you to check out using their amazing products. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Bye!